Hey everybody, it's Galmadex and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we'll be playing a Strixhaven sealed event, still very new to the format, still very fresh, having a absolutely fantastic time so far. The Mystical Archives is really fun, adding really powerful, splashy instants and sorceries from Magic's past to this limited format and to Arena as a whole, and I really like all of the colleges and the unique synergistic builds that are available in those. Learn and Lesson has been a fantastic mechanic, and I expect that to play incredibly well in Sealed, so let's just hop into this event and see what we open up. Oh my god. Alright, so we've opened some crazy red sorceries here immediately. That is automatically going to lend itself very well to Prismari, but as always, we'll have to take a look through all of our sealed pool, all the commons and uncommons, see where the power truly lies. Don't get too pulled by these rares, but I definitely have some ideas already with Crackle with Power and Mizzix's Mastery. We also have 4 more rares, so the thing to keep in mind here is with the Mystical Archives, every single pack has your normal rare or mythic, and also a Mystical Archives card, which can be a rare or mythic as well. So Sealed works a little weird here. Usually you click the open packs and it shows you all 6 of your rares, but with Strixhaven it can't do that, because you just can't hold all the rares. There's too many cards. As you can see, we have 4 more rares that we don't get to see right here. So out of these rares, my mind is already lending itself to a Prismari deck with some big instants and sorceries. That is what Prismari does well. They have a lot of cost reduction effects to those and some generally good kind of controlling onboard cards like 4 mana, 1/5 reach creatures and stuff. But we also have 2 great white rares, Elite Spellbinder, Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa himself, the world champion last year. Great card, nice evasive threat for pretty cheap 3 mana 3/1 flyer, and you get to choose whatever card you want from your opponent's hand, slow them down from casting it, make it cost 2 more to cast. There's also Sparring Regimen, which is great rare. You get to learn when you play this, and you get to essentially give one of your attacking creatures vigilance every turn, as well as putting a +1/+1 counter on it, so this card is great as well. Exponential Growth is honestly not very good because of the fact that it's sorcery speed, so your opponent always knows this is coming. If you have like a lot of trample in your deck, this can be a big game ender, but without trample, you just make one of your creatures really big, they'll just automatically be like, okay, I'm going to chump block that one then. So it doesn't do much without trample. And then we have like a green-black duel. So let's go ahead and see what our other rares and mythics are. We have 4 more in here, and then we'll take a look at our cards at like as a whole. Unfortunately, one of our rares from the Mystical Archives is Tendrils of Agony. Basically completely unplayable in limited. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life and you storm, which means whenever you cast it, you copy it for each spell cast before it. Really, really fun card to try to build your constructed decks around, or a really fun card to draft with in a cube designed to be drafted with Storm in mind, but in Strixhaven Limited and just a regular limited format, this card is just not going to do enough. This is essentially just like the card that you play after a long turn of playing a bunch of cards that just add mana and draw cards to kill your opponent immediately, and that's essentially impossible to do in regular limited, so unfortunately Tendrils of Agony not going to do it here. Neither is Confront the Past, a lesson that specifically works against Planeswalkers, or with Planeswalkers, so another card really only for constructed. Definitely another cool card to have in the collection though. However, our next couple rares here, the other 2 that we haven't seen, are pretty solid. First of all, we have Conspiracy Theorist, 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever they attack, you get to pay 1 mana to discard a card and draw a card. And whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you can exile one of them from your graveyard, and if you do, you can cast it this turn. So this is just really great. It gives you that card filtering when you have cards that you don't need in hand, and essentially in the very late game, you can even be drawing cards off of this without having to discard anything, because you get to discard that card into exile and then just cast it this turn anyway. So once you have enough mana to both discard that card and cast it, it just draws a card every time it attacks. So pretty great. 2 mana, 2/2, at worst. with a lot of upside if it can attack in without dying. And then our last rare, actually another pretty solid card. This one definitely more common or uncommon power level, but a solid removal spell nonetheless. Grape Shot, 2 mana to do 1 damage to any target, and Storm. The reason that this is still good, where Tendrils of Agony is not, is just because you can deal damage to creatures with this, and you don't have to storm off that much for this to do a lot. Because Tendrils of Agony only hits somebody's face, it only makes them lose life, it doesn't actually affect the board in any way. You have to do a lot of damage for this card to be worth it. But with Grape Shot, because you can just throw this at things on the board, you could just cast this on like turn 4, play your 2 mana creature, and then play a Grape Shot. Use this to kill a 2 toughness creature, or if you're really lucky, use this to kill 2 1 toughness creatures. That can be pretty great. So Grape Shot, just a solid, somewhat flexible removal spell. Certainly not the worst that we could open out of the Mystical Archives at all. So there's our rares there. Certainly red and white looking pretty exciting, so maybe a Lorehold deck, but our red spells do lend themselves well to Prismari, so we'll see how our commons and uncommons hold up in each color. So starting off with white, Clever Lumimancer only for the very aggressive decks with a ton of instants and sorceries, so I'm not super into that, although it is fun with Storm. Every time we copy our Storm spells, it gets +1. So that can be cool for incredibly aggressive. Star People's pretty similar, only really good in the very aggressive decks that want to be chipping away at your opponent with a 1/1. The good effect on Star People being that once it is blanked on the board, once your opponent has a 2/2 or a 3/3 and this can't attack it anymore, that's okay, because you can just cash this in, you send it in, just send it on a trump attack, cash it in to make all of a sudden your 2/2 become a 3/3, so that at least your 2/2 gets to keep attacking them every turn from then on, even if Star People can't. So it's fine in a pretty aggressive deck, but in Sealed you are generally going to be playing slower, more splashier effects and decks in general, so these kind of cards tend to underperform. Beaming Defiance, just a little pump spell that can save something from a targeted removal spell. Eager First Year, filler 2/2. Stonerise Spirit, kind of filler creature as well. Elite Spellbinder's great. Pilgrim of the Ages, I expect, is pretty great in Sealed. 3 mana for a 2/1. You draw planes when you play it, no matter what, you're drawing a card, and if you get into the really late game, you can keep bringing this back. So that can be really annoying to deal with. The Sparring Regimen's obviously pretty insane. Combat Professor is my favorite common white creature in the format, just a very, very good card. All by itself, it's a 4 mana 3/3 Vigilant Flyer, which is just the nuts. And with any other creatures, you can stack that power wherever you need it the most, so it's a really good card here. And Defend the Campus is probably okay in Sealed. It's going to be a slow enough format. There will often be creatures with power 4 or greater for you to blow up. I do actually kind of like this card because it's a pretty flexible card for aggressive decks. Aggressive decks are the kind of decks that are going to get good use out of either of these effects. You know, aggressive decks will have a big problem when your opponent plays a power 4 or greater creature and all of a sudden all of your 2/1s and 3/3s and all that stuff just can't get in anymore. So you get to use this to just blow that up in that situation. And anytime that your opponent is also just playing a bunch of small creatures, you could maybe use the big pump spell, +1/+1 to all your creatures, to have your creatures beat all of their creatures, or just chip in for extra damage. So I do like this card quite a bit. It's just a fun little flexible effect. But for Sealed, it's really just going to be destroying a creature, which even then is fine. So we put in those mediocre cards. This is everything I'm like almost certain I'd be playing in white, and then Beaming Defiance and Star People would be like maybes. So white looks pretty okay here. We do have, as I said before, Elite Spellbinder and Sparring Regimen being pretty big reasons to be in white. As for blue, we have a Frost Trickster. As for black, we have Mage Hunter's Onslaught, 2 of those. Pretty great removal spells there. 4 mana, destroy a creature Planeswalker. Anytime that your opponent blocks, they lose a life this turn, so really good in more aggressive decks. And we've got some good cards for aggression. We've got the 2 mana 2/2 with lifelink during your turn. We have Hunt for Specimens. Not the most aggressive, but a really good card in general. 2 mana for a 1/1 and you learn. So that's pretty great. 2 mana for a 1/1 that like draws a card is great. Arrogant Poet's a good aggressive card here. You can pay some life to give it flying. Yeah. The black here looks pretty solid. Dusk Mage is like okay. Kind of filler, but okay. Same with the Novice Dissectors. Brackish Trudge could be okay. If we end up in Witherbloom, that'll be pretty good. We can bring it back from our graveyard to our hand multiple times if we're gaining life each turn. Plumb the Forbidden. Sack a creature, draw a card, lose a life. Good with some pest tokens, so if we go Witherbloom, that'll be fine. Same with Unwilling Ingredient, good to sacrifice. But now we have like a mediocre pump spell, the Storm card that we really can't play, and the Lesson we really can't play. But black looks pretty solid here. Quite a bit of cards. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's pretty great. So right now what I'm doing is my usual tactic for sealed, but I should mention that in Strixhaven, another way that you can do your sealed deck build would be to just look at your colleges specifically first. So my general suggestions for any sealed format ever is to basically, look at your rares first, see where your power lies there, and then just individually look at each color and see what colors stack up to be the most powerful, and then just put the two most powerful colors together. Strixhaven is mildly different here. And that's because there's only 5 color pairs that are incredibly viable, because there's only 5 color pairs where you get to play multicolored cards. And those are, of course, Silverquill, white-black, Prismari, blue-red, Witherbloom, green-black, and Quandrix in green-blue. So it is also worth it to check these multicolored cards and see where you have the most powerful ones of these. But there are certainly some sealed pools where none of the colleges look all that insane. And honestly, right now, I think this might be one of those sealed pools. I think if we're going to end up playing a specific college, it would probably be Prismari, just because of those big red spells. So if we had anything to make them cheaper, like maybe with Rutha, that could be fun to copy them. But really, our multicolored cards are nothing that's really drawing us into any of these colors. Nothing like super bomby or powerful, just solid filler cards here. We've got no rares in multicolored. We've got just not even that powerful uncommons. Maybe our best 2-color pair here being Quandrix, because we have Quandrix Apprentice. Nice Magecraft ability to keep us drawing cards, even if they are just land cards. Eureka Moment, instant speed draw 2, put a land out is great. Aether Helix to slow our opponent down, as well as bringing a permanent back from our graveyard, so a good recursion spell. And then Fractal Summoning, of course, being a fantastic lesson if we have any learn cards. Needlethorn Drake even being a great blocker. But yeah, that's probably the best we have out of all these golds, and this is just solid. And I don't think our blue is very good, as I said before. So unless our green was excellent, I don't think we're going to end up playing Quandrix here. And of course, in Lorehold, we literally just have Stonebound Mentor. I'm not a huge fan of the Thrilling Discovery. Filtering effects aren't that great unless they put you up a card, and this doesn't. You're spending 1 Thrilling Discovery and 2 other cards to draw 3 cards. So you're spending 3 cards to get 3 cards, just a filter, not a card draw or anything. It's okay if you have stuff that cares about having a lot in graveyard. Pest Summoning's a pretty good lesson, but there's literally 2 Witherbloom cards here, so if green ends up being pretty good, we could end up Witherbloom just because our green's really good and our black's really good, but not because our multicolored here is great. Dina's fine with a lot of life gain. We do have good mana fixing in Witherbloom, the Witherbloom Campus and the Necroblossom Snarl. And then Prismari, as I said before, we have Arutha and a good lesson, but Teach by Example's pretty filler. Just kind of doubles up a removal spell one time if you have a bunch of instants or sorceries. We have 4 Teach by Example, which is kind of insane here. And Prismari Apprentice is good as well, but not a huge reason to be Prismari. And then Silverquill's completely empty. We have 1 Spiteful Squad, 2 Allen Shield Mage. Shield Mages are very filler. Spiteful Squad I do like for Death Touch trading up into something and then giving a permanent buff to something else on your field. It's just good value generally. But yeah, none of our colleges are that good. So if we end up in one of our colleges, it's more going to be because the 2 mono colors were just the best colors we had here. If green and black are just the best colors in the sealed pool, sure, we'll play Witherbloom, but this is a sealed pool where none of the colleges are powerful enough for me to say that I have to be in a college here. Whereas when you're drafting, you basically always have to be in at least one college, because then when you see these good multicolored cards, you get to pick them up and you get to play them. In sealed, we're really at the mercy of what we open, so if we just don't open anything insane in any college, maybe I've opened a bunch of good black and red cards and I just end up in Rakdos. It happens. Sometimes you're just a Ravnica foreign exchange student just hanging out on Strixhaven. I could see it happening here. As I said before, our black is pretty good and our red looked pretty fun. Grape Shot, Mizzix's Mastery, and Crackle with Power. So we'll go back into our mono color now that I've kind of explained one of the ways you can try to figure out what college to go in sealed here, and or just what colors to go in sealed here. And yeah, now that I've explained that, we'll go back to the normal sealed strategy because we might not end up in a college here. So let's see. Yeah, I think our red looks pretty exceptional here. We have Blood Age General, which is just a solid 2-mana 2/2. That's always fine and limited. If the ability ever does anything, that'll be good, but I doubt we have enough spirits for it to do anything here. I guess we do have a spirit off of Historian, which is a card I quite like, trades off in the early game and then gets you a 3/2 later. Conspiracy Theorist, as I said before, is really good. Infuriate can be an okay combat trick. Combat tricks are a little better in this set than usual because they trigger Magecraft pretty well, and with cards like Tome Shredder, you do want a lot of cheap instants and sorceries that'll go into your grave early. Tome Shredder, of course, a pretty great card, 3-mana 2/2 haste that just keeps getting bigger if it needs to. Heated Debate, a fantastic removal spell. Mizzix's Mastery is great. If you can only just copy a removal spell with this thing, it's not bad. It's like, this is the power level of Teach by Example at worst. It's like at worst we just spend 4 mana and I just Heated Debate again. And at best, if we draw this in the late game and we have 8 mana, it's so hard to lose if you get to overload a Mizzix's Mastery, because in this format most decks have a ton of instants and sorceries, so by the time you have 8 mana to overload this thing, you're likely to have 3 to 5 spells that you're casting off of this, and casting 3 or 5 spells out of nowhere is almost always just game. Very, very good card there. Very fun card too. Not only is it good, it's good in a pretty explosive, fun way, which is similar to Crackle with Power here. Crackle with Power, of course, kind of hard to figure out exactly what this does. It's kind of a confusing card to look at with 3 X symbols in the mana box and multiple X's in the text box here. So this says 2 red and then XXX. So you have to spend exactly X 3 times. So essentially, for 2 red, if you want X to be 1, you have to spend 3 more mana, because you have to spend 1 3 times. So at 5 mana, X equals 1, which means you do 5 times X. 5 times 1 is 5 damage to 5 targets. Or to 1 target. Oh my god. I give up. I'm not a Quandrix player. I already give up. I was going to explain this card and I'm already confused. Okay, so it does 5 times X damage. So if X is 1, this does 5 damage to 1 target. If X is 2, then this card would cost 8 mana total, and it would do 10 damage to 2 targets. If X is 3, this would cost 11 mana total, and it would do 15 damage to 3 targets, and so on and so on. There we go. I got there. I figured out the X's. If you're confused about the card, it's okay. And then I let you know exactly why, because I immediately confused myself with the card. These things happen. All right, so we have really powerful, well, we have 1 really powerful late game, 2 really powerful late game sorceries here. Mizzix's Mastery on an Overload is really good, and Crackle with Power is powerful, not Crackle with Powerful. Pigment Storm, pretty late and powerful, so I think Pillar Drop Warden is really good in this sort of deck because it holds down the fort with its big 1/5 body, and it can bring back one of those late game just massive spells, so Pillar Drop Warden would come into here as well. I think our red looks really spicy. I'm a pretty big fan of it, and the Grinning Ignises as well. This is actually the kind of deck that can use these Grinning Ignises. Grinning Ignis is mediocre in the wrong deck. You have to really be doing the Prismari sort of big spells thing. And when we have Mizzix's Mastery and Crackle with Power, I think we are doing the big spell thing. So Grinning Ignis is just a 3-mana 2/2, but you can bring it back later to get all the mana that you spent into it back. So if we play this on turn 3, then on turn 4, if we have 4 lands on the board, we can tap 3 lands for 3 mana, and then tap our last land for its 1 mana to put this back into our hand and get 3 mana out of this. So if we play this turn 3 and we have 4 lands out on turn 4, that means we could potentially have 6 mana on turn 4. And we can always save this for a later time to help maybe get like an 11 mana Crackle with Power off to just end the game, just deal 15 to 3 things. So Gritting Ignis with Crackle with Power in the deck is something that I am looking to play here. Twin Scroll Shaman is solid if we have a ton of pump spells. So if we want to play Twin Scroll Shaman, then we would end up playing like Grape Shot, Sudden Breakthrough as a +2/+0, get a treasure token, and Infuriate here, because those just combo well with Double Strike. And I could see like an aggressive start and then like, yeah, just a bunch of cheap creatures and a bunch of big spells. Try and mend those together into one deck. That could be a thing we go for here. Yeah, red just looks great. Definitely excited about red. And the second most exciting color to me here was black, although white was interesting as well. Just for not a lot of cards I really want to play in white, but the few that I do are good. Spellbinder, Sparring Regiment, and Combat Professor, and then just like a couple filler creatures there. So Lorehold is a possibility here. Rakdos is a possibility. We'll see about our final color here, see about green. And maybe we end up Gruul out of nowhere. So here in green, nice little combat trick. If we had up green-red, we'd play this with our Twin Scroll Shaman. Charge through, at worst it cycles to draw a card, that could be okay. Amplimancer's a fine filler creature, same with the Scurrid Colony. We'll definitely end up playing those if we're in green. The pump spells I'm a little less sure about, but they are possibilities. Oh, there are not a lot of green cards here. And yeah, the green cards just aren't that great. I think the 2-drops are fine. The 3-drops a little below the curve, but also fine. Professor of Zoomancy actually pretty good. 4/3 and a 1/1 that dies and gains us a life. And then Karok Rangler and Leyline Invocation are both cards that I do like in sealed. 5 mana for a 3/3 is a bit slow, but when you start Mage Crafting, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on any creature you control. And, you know, with a lot of instants in your deck, you can do a lot of work with that. If you have anything that learns and grabs lessons, that's pretty great. Leyline Invocation, pretty good in sealed, because sealed tends to be slower than draft, so you can definitely afford to play just big spells like this, where if you top deck this in the late game, all of a sudden you could just top deck a 9/9 and just be like, ha, look at my fractal. So that could be pretty big. See, our green is like, we could play some big dorky creatures, but that's about all it's got going for it. I mean, exponential growth as well, but we have like no trample, unfortunately. Yeah, the only trample we have is charge through to give temporary trample, so exponential growth not looking that great. Green in general, not looking super sweet, so I'm definitely not interested in Quandrix because I don't think that blue looked very good, and green was probably a little better, but still not really worth it. We might be able to play Lorehold, although we aren't playing any Lorehold cards specifically. We'd just be playing one Stonebound Mentor. My favorite colors here are red and black, so we'll see if we can make a Rakdos deck, but first of all, maybe we will end up in an actual college, and my favorite college, so let's see how the Lorehold deck turns out here. I think our red cards are pretty aggressive, actually, so we might want to run these just dorky, aggressive white cards in this deck. Our red creatures are aggressive. Our red spells are very slow. So I wouldn't actually run all of that. I just kind of shoved them all in there instinctually. Definitely get rid of some spells here, I think. I mean, 16 creatures is kind of a lot. We seem to have like very few lessons in this sealed pool in general, so learn actually seems not that great. How many lessons do we have in red or white here? Oh, this is every white card in this deck? I didn't put any lessons in my deck. So we have no white lessons. Do we have any red lessons? Oh, we put every red card in here. And I don't think we had a single red lesson either. Oh my god. That is unfortunate. Wow, we have just elemental summoning? Oh my god. Yeah, if we're in Lorehold, the only lesson that we have is elemental summoning, and I guess we have Introduction to Annihilation and Environmental Sciences, so that's not that bad. we've got an okay amount of lessons, but not a ton. So our sparring regimen probably learns for elemental summoning most of the time, but it can also learn for a land from environmental sciences, introduction to annihilation. So we only have 3 lessons in the red-white deck. So if we have like a ton of learn cards in here, we want to cut some of them, but I don't think we do. Just have a tiny bit anyway. So Mizzix's Mastery obviously doesn't work well with Crackle with Power, but it does work well with all of the just removal. Definitely works well with Grape Shot. That could be hilarious if we pull that off. Kind of think I want to cut the mediocre pump spells here. You know, Infuriate. More interested in cutting Beaming Defiance than Sudden Breakthrough here, because treasure tokens could be used well with Crackle with Power. And then, because we're cutting some pump spells, I kind of want to just get rid of the Twin Scroll Shaman. But Twin Scroll Shaman does work well with Sparring Regimen. It also works well with Star Pupil. If we can put +1/+1 counters on the Twin Scroll Shaman, that's also another way to get use out of it. Maybe cut the Clever Lumimancer here. And then this would be the Lorehold deck. Yeah, this looks okay. We didn't actually get a ton to work with Mizzix's Mastery, unfortunately. So this might actually have to get cut as well. It's really good with like a lot of good removal spells. We only have a few here though, and not that many spells in general. She's just a great, hilarious card for the top end of your big Prismari decks. I don't think it's all that it's cut out to be in this deck, unfortunately. So I could still see running maybe a Beaming Defiance here, give something hexproof, save it from a removal spell, just a fine little combat trick over the Mizzix's Mastery. Although Zephyr Boots is... Zephyr Boots is definitely better than that. Zephyr Boots is a pretty great card, especially in Sealed where there will be a lot of board stalls. This just starts letting you suit up any of your creatures to give them flying, make them evasive, get through those board stalls, and it gives you even card looting to get out of any mana flood in the late game, help draw into what you need, drawing a card and discarding a card every turn you hit somebody with a booted up creature. Yeah, Lorehold seems pretty fine here. But again, as I said before, we don't have to be in Lorehold like we usually would have to be in one of the colleges, because the only thing here that requires both red and white is a 3/3 for 3. That does not do much, so this deck seems pretty solid, pretty fine here, but we will go ahead and save this as is, and then take a look at red-black, because that was the next most exciting deck to me. And if red-black looks more powerful than this red-white deck, then I'll go ahead and save that deck and run with that. And if it doesn't, then I will go ahead and keep the Lorehold deck, just exit out of the deck builder without saving. We have 9 lands here, so we need 10 more? No, not 10 more, 9, 8. 8 more lands. So we need a couple more cards in here still. Were there any hybrid red-black, I mean not red-black, hybrid mana black cards, like a black-white hybrid card or a black-green hybrid? There was Pest Summoning, which is a great lesson to be able to grab, but I don't think I would main deck it in here. Yeah, I guess I do like the double Mage Hunter's Onslaught quite a bit, and Hunt for Specimens is great with that Pest Summoning we can pick up with a little more lessons here, but our lessons aren't that powerful, so our learn cards aren't as good. And while I do like these aggressive 2-mana creatures and the Mage Hunter's Onslaught here, We are going to have to run some filler in this deck, I think more so than even the white deck would. And white does give us Paulo and Sparring Regimen. So I guess Lorehold it is. Thought it would be really cool to start off the Strixhaven Sealeds with a Ravnica Exchange student run, but I don't think it was meant to be here. I think red and white actually probably the best deck that we have. So I'll just discard changes, reload that deck to take one last look at it, make sure that our mana's good, and get our sleeves and our deck box all ready. But I think Lorehold it is. I am a tiny bit sad that we couldn't be the Ravnica Foreign Exchange student. That is always fun, but the Lorehold is my favorite college of them all. So at least if we're going to be a Strixhaven college, let's let it be Lorehold here. So let's see how our mana looks. We have 14 red spells and 9 white spells. We have Pigment Storm and Crackle with Power, both requiring us to have 2 red mana. Nothing in here needs 2 white mana. We also have Pilgrim, which grabs a plains when we play it. I definitely think that we need more mountains than plains. And a 9-8 split seems fine to me, maybe even a 10-7, but probably not worth it because we do want our white mana early. We want it for our 1 mana and 2 mana creatures here. So we do want a pretty even accounting of both colors, and we don't need 2 red mana until turn 5 for Pigment Storm and Crackle with Power, so I think that this mana base looks pretty fine. I think Arena did a pretty good job on the auto-suggestive lands there, and I think the deck looks solid as is. We've got that Grape Shot as the deck box. Let's get some sleeves on. Unfortunately, again, all the Strixhaven sleeves just not working during the launch of Strixhaven. That's kind of funny every time I see it. So we'll pick the most Lorehold looking sleeve, which I guess would be like City of Brass, because they do like archaeology and history and all of that stuff. So City of Brass looks pretty accurate here. So here we are with our first Strixhaven sealed deck. Let's get into the gameplay. Just grabbing a drink here between games, as I tend to do. As always, there will be timestamps in the description below to skip ahead to every round. I do keep that in the description to avoid spoilers, because obviously if I give you a timestamp to every round, it'll tell you how many rounds there are, how many games. Alright, so here we are. Don't have anything till turn 3, but it is Pilgrim of the Ages, which grabs us our 4th land at the very least. That makes sure we can hit Pillar Drop Warden. This seems pretty solid to me. It's a bit of a slow hand, but we have cards that play well with a slow hand. Pillar Drop Warden and Crackle with Power, both cards that are going to be massive in the late game. So if we can survive here, we have some good plays. Unfortunately, our opponent has a pretty good aggressive start here. I think I will drop our Pilgrim of the Ages to have a 2-1 out to be able to block their Prismari Apprentice if they don't play a spell. If they play a spell, this is going to be really bad for us, though. Maybe we should just Heated Debate here. This is an interesting debate between these two options. If we pass turn, then if they play a spell, Pledge Mage is like a 3-3, then we just shoot the Pledge Mage. The problem with that is, if we don't play Pilgrim right now, we don't know that we'll have our 4th mana next turn, so we might end up Heated Debating here and then Pilgriming next turn. But that's not that bad. I just feel like if we cast Pilgrim and then they cast an instant or sorcery next turn, that's pretty disastrous for us, because then we only have a 2-1 to block things. Our 2-1 to block things can't block that, because that'll be a 3-3. So we'll end up taking 5, going to 13. That seems like a really painful hit, so I'm just going to pass turn here and probably try to shoot one of those things. This does play really poorly if they have like a pump spell to save one of those, but in Prismari, in blue-red, I would expect a counter spell more than anything else to be their best option. I think I will try to kill the Pledge Mage over the Apprentice, because it can get bigger easier. And they're just going to play another Pledge Mage. Well, now we kind of have to just go for the Pilgrim here. Get that land. And we are once again at that same crossroads thanks to them just replacing their own Pledge Mage, where if they have an instant or sorcery, we're in a really bad spot. But they didn't have one last time, but they have more mana available now. They've got 4 mana up. They are Quandrix and Prismari, Green-Blood and... Green, blue, and red. Quandrix and Prismari. Teamer, so to say. Ooh, Combat Professor. We could start attacking with Pilgrim of the Ages with Vigilance. Pilgrim of the Ages is a good trade with any of these cards, and we're already just trying to hold it up for blockers to trade with those. Sparring Regimen does draw us a lesson from its Learn effect, and it also gives Pilgrim Vigilance. I think I like Combat Professor better. That gives us a blocker in the sky, and Sparring Regimen, if we draw 1 more mana, we could cast Sparring Regimen and Grape Shot in the same turn so that we can actually kill something with Grape Shot. So I like spreading out, getting some more blockers here with Combat Professor. A 2/3 flyer, obviously being a pretty great blocker against a 2/2 flyer, like Spectacle Mage. Igneous Inspiration is going to blow that up and trigger a ton of Magecraft effects here, making Prismari Apprentice unblockable and Quandrix Pledge Mage a 3/3. So this play has blown up on us a little bit. Clearly in hindsight, Sparring Regimen... Well, never mind. No, Sparring Regimen would have been almost as bad of a play. Igneous Inspiration just really hindered whatever we wanted to do there. Oh, Teachings of the Archaics. So they only get to use this if we have more cards in hand than them. But if we do, they can play this to draw 2 cards. And if we have 3 more cards in our hand than them, then they get to draw... Or if we have 4 more cards in hand, then they get to draw 3 cards. So they draw 2 cards if we have more than them. And if we have 4 more, they draw 4. We have 4 more after they cast that. They'll have 2 left in hand. Well, that is sad. The real punish for us just having too much value, too much stuff to do here. Ooh, but we get that Grape Shot off here. They only have 2 mana up. We know they just grabbed this draw spell. Hopefully no pump spells here. I think our best play would be to go for the Grape Shot, although maybe it's not to Sparring Regimen. Maybe it's to get more blockers out. Although, if we want to Grape Shot here, our best blocker is just a Grinning Ignis, just a 2/2, which is not a great blocker. Although they could double block to stack up on Pledge Mage. We know they're casting a sorcery next turn, so we can't block Prismari Apprentice next turn. Would we rather kill the Apprentice than the Flyer? Crackle with Power only kills 1 thing, so we definitely don't want to do... I mean, well, Grape Shot only kills 1 thing as well, but we don't want to do Crackle with Power because we can Grape Shot to kill 1 thing and put another card on our board. I think I like Sparring Regimen better here, because we get to learn for a card and see if we have anything that helps us right now. Helps us with some outs to the scary threats they have. Their stuff isn't all that big, so like Elemental Summoning could be fine, get a 4/4. Be the biggest blocker we could possibly play. Obviously can't do it immediately here. And I think I want to kill the Flyer first, because Prismari Apprentice does get to hit us for 2 anytime that it's... anytime they cast an instant or sorcery. But the Flyer gets to hit us for 2 every turn, and we can just use Crackle with Power to kill the Apprentice later. We do know that they're Magecrafting this turn, but we're also not going to have a Flyer out this turn, so either way, Like, either way, we're getting hit for 2 by one of those unblockably. And this way, maybe next turn they don't have an instant or sorcery. Maybe next turn they just play a creature. Of course, Pledge Mage is big enough to attack into our Pilgrim of the Ages now, though. Just thinking back on our last turn, I guess like Blood Age General instead of Sparring Regimen would have been the best we could do, because then we have 4 power to block Pledge Mage if they don't have any more tricks in hand, if they just had that one spell. But now we do turn Pilgrim into a 4/3. Really not a fan of our current situation. They could have like a deal 3 in hand where we're dead immediately. I think we attack with Pilgrim so that we have a 4/3 blocker here. If they cast a spell that costs 5 or greater, they can make Prismari Apprentice unblockable and kill me with that, because they get a +1/+1 counter if it has mana value 5 or greater. We just take lethal there. I think we have to crackle with power and kill the Prismari Apprentice, because with like Grinning Ignis out, they could easily cast a 7 mana sorcery next turn, and if they do that, Prismari Apprentice just kills us. But if they're casting a 7 mana sorcery, we're probably just dying anyway. But I think it's the best we have. Oh, X cannot be 3. We don't have that much mana. X can be 1 here. Crackle with power always confuses my puny brain. Oh yeah, they're casting a 7 mana spell here, something massive. If they need that Grinning Ignis mana. Alright, yep, just 5 to a target and 3 to my face. Or whichever way they did it. 5 to something, 3 to something else. Either way is lethal. I think in hindsight, putting another creature out instead of the enchantment would be better that game by a bit. But certainly not enough to change the outcome. Opponent just had a lot of very solid evasive threats very early on. And the Quandrix Apprentice, one of the best common creatures. That is one of the cards that has overperformed a lot for a lot of people. It didn't look super great at first. At first it was like, this looks like a solid card. But the more the format has gone on, it has quickly become one of the most sought after creatures in like Draft. That thing gets devastatingly large very quick. Alright. Definitely going to keep this. Very nice start to this game. Very good curve. All around. Opponent does have a Prismari Pledge Mage now. So we're not attacking into that for a long time. Guess I'll just play the Blood Age General then. Historian's better at trading into stuff, but General's like a little better for just a long game. Hall of Oracles is a fantastic land, putting +1/+1 counters onto one of their creatures every turn they cast a sorcery or an instant. So that is a really good card, especially in Limited, Sealed in particular. Just play a Stonebound Mentor here. It is our only creature actually large enough to attack into a Prismari Pledge Mage. Ooh, I really want to draw removal. If I don't draw removal, our opponent is about to value us out of this game very quickly, drawing a card whenever they cast an instant or sorcery, as well as putting a counter on one of their creatures. We have not drawn the removal yet, and the longer it takes to draw us removal, the more and more they will be drowning us in this card advantage. Well, I think I have to do my best to get aggressive here, but I can't really attack with any of these. So we send in Stonebound Mentor, trade with Pledge Mage just to get it out of the way so that my next creatures could actually send in and get something done. I think we play Twin Scroll Shaman right now because it's essentially a 2/2. So it's essentially just as big as playing like Illustrious Historian first. And that makes it so next turn we could cast Tome Shredder and Historian and dump out as much as possible onto the field. We wouldn't have enough mana to cast Twin Scroll and Tome Shredder next turn. And I don't want to cast Tome Shredder right now because we don't have anything in our graveyard. So we can get value out of the haste by casting that next turn. So it can just attack in the turn we play it. Not feeling great about our chances against this Archmage, although if our opponent does not have any instants or sorceries yet, then it will be pretty great. Pretty great for us, I should say. Oh, God. Ooh, that's disgusting. They have Prismari Command immediately. That is a really, really good instant. It is a removal spell and a draw spell all in one. They deal 2 to a target and draw 2, discard 2. And of course, with the Archmage as well, they draw an additional card off of that. Well, I thought it would take a couple turns for them to start just drowning us in their value, but one turn in and they have just drawn 3 cards, discarded 2, and killed the Twin Scroll Shaman. This is already pretty devastating. And of course, the fantastic ability on the Hall of Oracles here going to make that Archmage a 3/3 big enough to send in against us if they want to risk it. Looks like they don't. They don't want to get marked for death or whatever the 1 red mana ability is in Lorehold. All right, I like Combat Professor a lot with Blood Age General. But there is there's a 1 mana Lorehold combat trick that gives +1/+0, and then when it dies this turn, it creates a 3/2. I forget what it's called, but they may be worried that we had that, and so they didn't attack in with the Archmage because it is really important. Archmage, Archmage. I say it differently every time. It's one of those words. There's a lot of them for me. Environmental Sciences, draw a card, and grab a basic, gain 2. They get to throw another counter onto the mage, make it a 4/4 now, at which point it would be safe to attack in even if we had the 1 mana pump spell. So they'll probably send in this turn. Yep. We take 4, and they have a Quandrix Pledge Mage out now, so not only are they drawing a ton of cards, but Pledge Mage is going to keep getting bigger and bigger, so they'll have 2 really big threats out. Thinking Conspiracy Theorist doesn't have haste, right? Yeah, so we'll just be dumping that out. It's whatever. Tome Shredder does have haste, so we'll drop that out. Nothing to exile, so we just treat it as a 2/2, in which case we're fine with a trade with Pledge Mage, because Pledge Mage gets a lot bigger over time. And do I actually want to hold Blood Age General back for blocks now? I take 4, 5, 6 minimum, go to 10. If I buff General, I hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, put them to 10. Actually, I think I will buff that here. I think the only way I'm getting out of this game is if I somehow outrace them. So if I just like draw into some crazy pump spells. Could have held on to the land for Conspiracy Theorist, but I can also just discard Historian and then cast it with the exile effect. Which may be my plan. If we don't hit something better than Historian. Electrolyze as well. Ooh, their sealed pool is loaded. Prismari Command and Electrolyze, both really, really good removal spells because they kill something and give you card advantage. Dealing 2 to a target, drawing 2, discarding 2, or dealing 2 divided as you choose among multiple targets and drawing a card. Electrolyze is wonderful, probably even better than Prismari Command in Limited, because if your opponent has 2 1-toughness creatures, or if one of their creatures has been dealt damage to where it only has 1 toughness left, this can be really brutal. Being a 3-for-1, killing 2 of their cards for 1 of yours, and the 1 card you use draws a card. So this is a really wonderful sealed pool that we're playing against here, and a really well-built deck. I am pretty horrified. Here we have Plarg, Dean of Chaos. Alright, whatever. His name is Plarg, so he's a big doof. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary non-land with mana 3 or less, and you can cast it for free? Oh my god, so 5 mana tap every turn and you just cast something for free every turn? Yeah, that's a really great draw spell. It also rummages, tapping to discard a card and draw a card. Plark seems very solid. Yeah, with Sudden Breakthrough, I think we're still just on that aggro plan, hoping for the best. I guess giving Tome Shredder Vigilance could matter, because then we can buff the counter. What is this? Exile one of them? Yeah, exile the card I discarded. But yeah, it could matter, so I can Sudden Breakthrough and give Tome Shredder a +1/+1 counter here. So let's see what the plan is. Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. Oh, that's delicious. I love it. Okay. So we're going to kill the Archmage, and we're going to kill the Quandrix Pledge Mage. We'll lose Tome Shredder, but that's it. That was wonderful. So they just have Plarg now, but they have a loaded hand because they have been drawing a lot of cards, so we still have to worry about that. Although with Conspiracy Theorist still being out, we'll get value off of that again next turn. I think it's worth saving the land now. We have 6 mana, now we just have a ton. So now I can just like discard the land on Conspiracy Theorist. If I don't want to do the cheeky combo, discard a non-land card again. We'll see what we end up drawing here. And that'll I suppose decide. I guess we do have Crackle with power in this deck, so maybe it is worth it to play the land. Just in case we hit that Crackle, but I think Crackle is lethal anyway. Just for 5 mana, deal 5 damage to them. They're at 8 life, so yeah, Crackle would probably be enough. That was a really great attack for us. Very happy to have drawn that pump spell. Ooh, Frost Trickster will hold the Combat Professor down, definitely slowing us down quite a bit here. But we still get to use Combat Professor's ability to get in for some more damage. And if they don't have any other removal or hindrances here, they don't, just a Letter of Acceptance. That means we do get to attack with both of these, and the worst case scenario on them is that they trade in. Discard 1 or more, you may exile it and you can cast it this turn. Okay. So I guess discard the Stonerise Spirit so we don't actually have to discard here. If we draw something that costs 5 or less, which is very likely. Buff the Historian, so they want to block that a little more. Although they're definitely going to just block both, I think. Conspiracy Theorists, I mean, they're 100% going to block that because it gives us the card draw every turn. So I don't think we need to buff that because that's already just going to get through. All right, we just drew another land. Exile our Stonerise Spirit. We only had enough mana if we played Stonerise pre-combat to give 1 creature flying, so it wouldn't matter. We just give 1 flying and then they block the flyer, block the non-flyer. So it really doesn't matter there. Play our Stonerise Spirit, and we have enough mana thanks to the treasure token to use Illustrious Historian's ability to make a 3/2 Spirit in their end phase to have as many creatures on our board as possible. So we've got a shot here. We've got a lot less cards than our opponent, but we've got more creatures on board. We've got a higher life total. We're just trying to push. We're just trying to make that final push for that 8 damage if we can. They even have more card draw on board, the Letter of Acceptance being able to sacrifice itself to draw a card. Really nice value deck over here. Tome Shredder's the play. That's pretty terrifying with the amount of instants and sorceries they have in Grave. That could become a really good blocker, although everything that we have can get flying with Stonerise Spirit's effect. So we can fly over that if Stonerise Spirit is still around. And it is for now. So we'll just try to get in with all flying here. Doesn't really matter what we exile. I think we don't have anything to bring creatures back. 3, 4, 5, 6. We only hit for 7 here, so we don't hit for lethal. I think I'd rather have the token get the plus, because we're the most okay with the token dying. So if they want to throw a removal spell here... Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, I was going to say if they had like a burn kind of removal spell, I'd rather they hit the token with that than anything else, but that actually could have been really bad if they buried our spirit, but I suppose they just don't have any flyers in hand, so they have to get rid of one of the flying threats. So we do hit for 5, put them to 3, so we have lethal on board next turn if spirit hits them again. We're drawing Combat Professor in 2 turns. We don't know what we're drawing next turn. Enthusiastic Study. They're going to learn, hopefully grab themselves a removal spell, I think. It's probably what they're trying for here. See what they ended up with in their sealed pool in terms of lessons. They also do get to use that Hall of Oracles to put a +1/+1 counter on Shredder now. They do have the Introduction to Annihilation with exactly enough mana to cast it here. They probably cast it on Stonerise Spirit. Yep, that is the play. At least we draw a card off of that. That means that we do draw into Combat Professor next turn. So we play Combat Professor, give Spirit plus, and the Spirit will trade with Tome Shredder. So depending on what we hit here, could still be fine. Oh my god, Pigment Storm? That is a huge draw. They're tapped out. We kill their only blocker. That should do it. We even have the mana to cast Combat Professor as well. And yeah, they don't even use Tome Shredder's ability to prevent 1 of that damage. They could have made Tome Shredder +1/+1. That way they only take 1 off of me casting that, but then they just die when we attack them. So basically the concession from our opponent, they're very surprised to have been able to push through for lethal in that game. Our opponent had a great start there, but we were just able to out-aggro them, out-aggro all those cards they drew into. That was a pretty scary game, but that will put us to 1-1 with our Lorehold deck heading into round 3. Okay, here we are in round 3. Turn 1 Star Pupil, turn 2 Conspiracy Theorist, turn 3 Stonebound Mentor on the play. Can't really get much more aggressive than that in sealed. I will absolutely take it. With the sudden breakthrough as a combat trick as well, once they finally get to start blocking things. I'm going to play this Conspiracy Theorist pre-combat here. I don't believe there's anything they could do for 1 mana, but when you have a Star Pupil out, it's probably best to get some creatures on board before you start sending it into any dangerous situations. That way, if somehow it dies, you do get the value out of it. Put its counter onto something else. Attack both in, they trade Star Pupils, and then we throw a counter onto our Conspiracy Theorist. Seems fine to me, although I could sudden break through to save our pupil if we really want to. I'll hold on to it here just in case they have something to kill Theorist. All right, no blocks. All right, just do 3 then. And we'll drop our 3/3 Stonebound Mentor. It's a Spirit Advisor, advising our elephant friend here. I do really like the Loxodons. It's really cool to see like archaeologist adventurer kind of Loxodons here in Lorehold. That is another thing I really love about the college. Everything about it is just very solid. With Sudden Breakthrough, we get to attack in with everybody, use a Sudden Breakthrough, and still have 3 mana up to cast Paulo. So that could be great. Yeah, our attacks are pretty safe here with +2/+0 first strike. Anything they like threaten to kill, we just Sudden Breakthrough. If we're worried about it. If they kill Star Pupil, it's whatever. Like, that's fine. We'll just put that counter somewhere else and be happy about it. Ooh. I didn't think about this block, though. This looks a little gross, but I still think it's the best that we have here. It looks a little gross because they get to first strike, move the +1/+1 counter over when it dies, right? Oh wait, no, that's not what it does. Oh, I thought it did something completely different. I have never actually fully read that card, which is interesting. Okay, so that's just, if it had a counter on it when it dies, you draw a card. Okay, no, that block was super fine for us. So they have 3 mana, they have 2 lands, they can play their 4 mana card next turn if we don't choose that, otherwise they're going to play a Silverquill Pledge Mage. I'd rather get rid of Silverquill Pledge Mage because they can cast that and hold up Make Your Mark. Now if they want to play a blocker, they can't hold up Make Your Mark, so we can Crackle with Power if we draw a land, kill their only blocker, without them being able to get a 3/2. Anyways, yeah, I did get the Promising Dusk Mage mixed up with the Crocodile from Zendikar. That's a 2/3 that puts a +1/+1 counter on something when it dies. That is not what that does. I just saw 3 mana black common 2/3 that says +1/+1 counter in the text. So I just immediately ascribed an ability to it that is not what it actually does. We are hitting for 9 here. They're down to 4 against this board. Can probably crack in for lethal next turn, although we'll see what they have. Combat Professor with 1 mana up. They can use their Make Your Mark, but that will not get there. They still can only block 1 creature this turn. This should be the lethal attack. And we even, just in case it isn't, get to use Conspiracy Theorist to straight up draw a card here by throwing Twin Scroll Shaman into exile and casting it this turn instead of discarding it. Which lets us scry with Stonebound Mentor as well. That's a weird interaction. It does fully discard the card and then exile it, so that's cool. That's a combo I didn't even realize was going on in this deck. So we do get to scry one with Stonebound Mentor as well. So we have definite draws and value going for even if we don't lethal them this turn. And it's a land, so we'll get rid of that. So we are digging out of a little bit of flood here. If we're not just killing them now. And there's the Make Your Mark, so that is the only play that will put them to -2, closing out this next round. Another victory for our Lorehold allies. 2-1. 3 rounds in, heading into round 4. Let's go. Alright, round 4, we certainly have a slow hand. No 1 or 2 mana creature. We've got that Ignis if we draw into any really big spells. Otherwise, it's just a 2/2. We do have Combat Professor on 4, which is great. Multiple removal spells, Heated Debate, and Defend the Campus. Not worth a mulligan. We'll keep it and see how it pans out here. Interesting hand. Definitely somewhat reliant on our draws. Grinning Ignis doesn't do much by itself. I suppose since we did end up cutting the Mizzix's Mastery, we should take another look at our evaluation on if Grinning Ignis is even worth it in this deck, although we don't have too many other options in red-white for what creatures to play. I guess we could check how many learn cards we have. If we don't have any learn cards in this deck, we just play like a 5-mana 4/4 elemental summoning instead. We do have the Sparring Regimen, so we do have a learn card. Sorry, just checking our deck list again. Would I rather Spellbinder or Combat Professor here? If I Spellbinder, I get to throw a Star Pupil out as well, and I have a Defend the Campus here. I like that. Go pretty wide here. And slow down whatever their best play would be. And I like doing this pre-combat so we get a peek at their hand before I send in case they have some kind of flash stuff, instant speed stuff. And as you can see, they did have target player sacrifices a creature at instant speed, but instead they choose to make the Flying Inkling. They can make me discard 2 cards. Discard Defend the Campus Heated Debate. They could play a 5/5 or they can play a 2/2. They play a 5/5, I kill it with Defend the Campus. They play a 2/2, I kill it with Heated Debate. We just get aggressive here. I think I like just making their discard spell more expensive, actually. That actually does seem like generally quite annoying to me right now. And by making it more expensive, we can really play around it, because we have enough mana to cast everything in hand. If we draw more lands, we can just sandbag them and discard them when they cast that. If we don't draw lands, though, we can't really do that. So we know they can play a 5/5 next turn, and they have 1 card we don't know about. Combat Professor should be a safe play. If I +1 our Star People, we can attack all, and then they get to kill Spellbinder. Exile a non-land card for as long as it remains exiled. Costs 2 more to cast. Okay, so it doesn't even matter if Paulo dies. The spell still costs 5. Okay, so we'll attack all then. We're fine to trade in to stay aggressive. +1 on the Star People, so everything trades at least. They're looking at their hand here. I don't like that. They may have drawn into something good for this situation. Could be just deciding what they want their future plays to be here, and what board state would be good for that. Looks like we are going to make trades here and just deal 2. They either make us discard 2 or play their 5/5 this turn, out of what we know. They have 2 cards we don't know about, though. If they play their 5/5, we kill it. If they make us discard 2, I'm actually not sure what we discard. Probably our Heated Debate and our creature, because we know they have a 5/5 in hand and will want to defend the campus to get rid of it. But it does really hurt discarding Heated Debate and Eager First Year. I think it's our best choice. This is even an instant, so we can do it during their end step, which is great. Ooh, Zephyr Boots. Would I rather toss out a Zephyr Boots right now or defend the campus in their end step? I guess it all depends on what we draw into, and we don't know what we draw into until our draw step. Like, I would rather have defend the campus at instant speed if I draw like a 4-mana spell. Or actually any spell. Yeah, I think I hold on to the boots because I'm almost 100% sure they're just going to drop a 5/5 this turn. So we're definitely going to cast Defend the Campus. And if we draw a spell, then we can just cast the spell. And if we don't draw the spell, then we can throw the boots out. This does play poorly if they just play some other creature that doesn't die to defend the campus that we weren't planning for. Alright, they just play the 5/5. If they drew like anything with flying or reach, they would have played that instead of the Pledge Mage, so it's a little risky of a play. But I definitely like killing that 5/5 because they do have... they do have that Magecraft ability to gain life. So it does stop a lot of damage from just that ability, even if it can't block our flyers. Alright, looks like we're both top decking for now, but we've got the Zephyr Boots to help with that. Now that they're completely untapped, I probably should have thrown the plus power onto the Star Pupil, because while Combat Professor is a better blocker, we're at 20 life, and if they have an instant speed removal spell, we'd way rather they kill the Star Pupil than the Combat Professor. And if we stack all the damage onto the Combat Professor, it's going to be really easy to kill that and stop 4 damage, or stop 3 damage instead of killing that and only stopping 2 out of the 4. We can't Grape Shot them for lethal or anything, so I think we just hold on to that. Still holding on to the lands so we can discard them to our Zephyr Boots. And our opponent is going to start scrying off of the Quandrix campus. They unfortunately did not scry into an answer. Could have been any creature on the ground and it would not be enough because we had the boots. So our whole field had flying there, which was quite nice. So we are at 3-1. However things pan out from now, we've made it to 3-3 at least, another average run at the minimum. Definitely been having a great time, not only with how fun the format is, but just in terms of win rate in this format. We have not yet gone below a 3-3 in Strixhaven, which is surprising for me, to be honest. For me, my usual win rate is like 55-ish%, just a bit above average. And in Strixhaven, I don't know what the win rate has been, but I literally haven't had a single limited event where I've gone less than 3-3 so far, so it's been very nice. It always does give you a little bit of the feel bad to go like 2-3, 1-3. 3-3, you can never be that mad about. It's like, I'm just an average Magic player. Alright, so I'm pretty sure we keep this, although it is a bit risky. We do need to hit the 3rd land, but we've got some powerful options available. I say that a lot. We've got this card available and this card available. We've got these cards in hand. So turn 2, we got Blood-Age General. As soon as we hit a 3rd land, we get a Sparring Regiment out. That card is so good. I think this is just a straight keep here, and we are hoping for the best. We do have Zephyr Boots turn 1, although we're probably not equipping it for quite a while. We have Grinning Ignis to ramp us into a Crackle with power. And that could be a nice late game. There's the 3rd land for the Sparring Regimen, so that is a fantastic draw. They're just going to Lash of Malice our Blood-Age General, sure thing. I may play the Grinning Ignis before the Sparring Regimen then, because I don't really like learning for just like a 3-2 right now. And it isn't adding anything to our board unless we're planning on attacking that turn. Looks like they grabbed an Introduction to Prophecy off of their Cram session. So they have, next turn, they're going to spend 3 scry to draw a card, potentially. Oh my god, we just drew the best creature in our deck to pair with the Sparring Regimen. If they don't have immediate removal for Twin Scroll Shaman, this will attack as a 2-power double-striking creature. They don't have immediate removal, so let's get going. A 2-3 double strike, and then a 3-something double strike. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. We have 3 mana right now. Grinning Ignis makes it so we have enough mana for Crackle with power, so I don't love Environmental Sciences, although in conjunction with Illustrious Historian, we could play 2 spells next turn. Just grab a land and then play Historian. That might be okay. Our other options, yeah, we just have like a 4-4 for 5. That is good late game, but right now It's not awesome. I think we do take environmental sciences here. If they block with Dusk Mage, we just kill that. If they don't block, we do 4 damage to them. So it looks like we did get to deal 4 damage to them. We have negated all the life they gained off their Cram session. Now a Guiding Voice. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and learn. Certainly a lot to learn in our opponent's deck. We're only 3 turns in and they've learned twice. We have much less than that. They do have Reduced to Memory to exile a non-land permanent, have its controller create a 3/2 instead. Not the worst removal spell for us. They do get to kill our Sparring Regiment or our big double striker, but we at least get a 3/2 out of it. We get something back, although it's not something all that great. Twin Scroll Shaman does get to hit them for 6 this turn, even if they don't attack here, because we can put Zephyr Boots on the Shaman just to get in. And we get to draw discard twice in a row. That's pretty spicy too. I actually think that's pretty awesome here. I like playing another creature out and the Zephyr Boots, but we'll see based on what we draw off of this. But I'm probably just casting Historian. I suppose I should have held onto the land just in case. I do like that Mountain, because that is the second red we need for Crackle with power. So do we just discard Grinning Ignis here? Because it is a pretty mediocre creature. I guess Environmental Sciences, now that we have 5 mana, is not really necessary. Yeah, just discard the Sciences. Any creature can become a threat with Sparring Regiment and Zephyr Boots in conjunction. That's like really good. Any creature we play can be a flyer that keeps getting bigger. So even just the 3 mana 2/2 is fine here. Oh, they only have 1 white mana. They only have 1 white mana. They can't even reduce to memory yet. Oh my god, Twin Scroll Shaman might just be going off still. They only have 2 mana up now. They had to cast a Tezzeret's Gambit, paying 2 life and 3 to draw 2, then proliferate. This is a nice duress here, but luckily for us, it's unlikely to matter because Twin Scroll Shaman gets 1 more attack in, hits for 8 here. They only have 1 mana up, so that definitely happens. Yeah, Twin Scroll hit for 8, draw 2, discard 2. It's definitely the best play we have. But yeah, that was a really good duress. Get rid of our Crackle with power, so they're not immediately dead anymore. We would have had lethal here had we still had our Crackle. Ooh, Elite Spellbinder to make one of their cards more expensive, and just have a straight up flyer here. Seems pretty great. Discard the Ignis now so I can cast 2 creatures, so if they don't have a Wrath effect, we're good, and we can cast Spellbinder first, just to be certain they don't have a Wrath. So we can know exactly what they have in hand. They have Reduced to Memory, Spiteful Squad, Mage Hunter, Mana Tithe, and Spectre of the Fence. So they have Mana Tithe. So they have 1 flying creature. We just make the flying creature more expensive, and we just definitely hit them for at least 5 this turn. Yeah, that seems right to me. Well, actually, we could make it cost 6 mana. They have 4, 5, 6. They have to draw land to play the flyer. If I tax that, it's actually probably better to tax the Mana Tithe so that I can just go wide here. So we'll do that. If I didn't tax the Mana Tithe, I couldn't cast Eager First Year there, because then they just counter that. They do play the Spectre of the Fens, but we can just crack in with all, and that'll be lethal. That was a rough time for our opponent. Even if they had found that second white, it would have been a long battle there. That was just a ridiculous start from us. The 1-2 punch of the Twin Scroll Shaman, getting a +1/+1 counter on every attack. Very, very solid stuff from our deck there. So we are at 4 wins, 1,400 gems in 3 packs at the very least. The weird thing about Sealed is that you only get 3 packs no matter how good you do. You just get a little bit more gems for every win. So that's a little strange. Sealed definitely better for like building your collection because you open 6 packs no matter what and get 3 more packs no matter what. So it's the more consistent payout in terms of just getting a bunch of cards towards your collection. If you want like the big payout for big wins, that's where Premier Draft has it going, because the amount of packs you get ramps up so much exponentially for how much better you do in the draft instead of just, you know, flatline three packs each time. And the amount of gems as well does differ a lot more than in sealed here. Alright, here we are in round 6, 4-1 with the Lorehold deck. This game might be a tie. Okay, I was going to say it might be one of those games that Arena just gets confused and then hands everybody a tie. This hand's really cool if we draw both a plains and a creature. Otherwise, it's not incredibly playable. We don't really do anything till turn 3, and on turn 3 we could cast Zephyr Boots and Grape Shots so that we can Grape Shot to deal 2 damage to something. So that is like the worst case scenario with our hand. Our opponent did mulligan and we're on the draw. Those are a couple reasons that make it a little more possible to be a keep than you would think otherwise. But I still think we have to mulligan this one. We need a creature. We need a white source. This is multiple things that we have to rely on drawing here. And this is definitely better. I think we get rid of Grape Shot here, but maybe the Crackle with Power. In our deck, Crackle with Power is basically just 5 to do 5 to something. We very rarely get higher in mana than that, although if we do draw Grinning Ignises, it's possible. Yeah, we have nothing to go with the Grape Shot here, because we're just going to play a 2-drop turn 2, a 3-drop turn 3. We're never going to like double spell with this Grape Shot in hand. I think we get rid of that. That way we have all the mana we need to definitely cast our 2-drop and 3-drop, and we're closer to casting the Crackle. Our opponent starts off with a forest. We'll start off with a plains. We have 4 mana now. Their Witherbloom. Against Witherbloom, I think I'd rather cast an Eager First Year than an Illustrious Historian. We haven't seen any creatures from them yet. Illustrious Historian does trade better into 2 toughness creatures, but Witherbloom has pest tokens, and pest tokens are these little 1/1s that can block and gain a life, and those are really good at blocking Illustrious Historian, and not so good at blocking a 2/2. They'd have to block 2 pest tokens. And a Blood Researcher is a good enough card. I highly doubt they block either an Eager First Year or an Illustrious Historian here, so didn't really matter. We'll send in. Really don't expect the block here. This is just like a better Ajani's Pridemate, very solid in the Witherbloom decks with the life gain available. I'll drop a Twin Scroll Shaman here, I think. Basically a 2/2 at worst. If we draw any of our pump spells or our really nice enchantments, then this can go off, as we've seen before. Pillar Drop Warden is going to be pretty great in conjunction with Crackle with Power. This will come out and block a lot of stuff. Ooh! This will come out and block a lot of stuff, and then we can sacrifice the late game to bring back the Crackle. They only have 2 mana up here. Pretty sure Sparring Regimen just goes off here. We get to attack with a Twin Scroll Shaman as a 2/3 double striker. If they have a pump spell, that'll be sad. But if they don't, that'll just be a great attack. If they have like the 1 mana gain 2 life, give a creature +X/+X, where X is the life you gained this turn, that'll just absolutely blow us up. We already have the Crackle with Power to kill their Blood Researchers as soon as we draw 1 more land. I think I like just the 5 mana 4/4 for when we hit our next land. Little bit risky, because we don't know when we'll hit the next land, so if we draw this and then don't draw land for several turns, it could get us, could come back to bite us. We could just take Environmental Sciences to know we hit that land for the Crackle. I think I still just like the 4/4 here. Like, if they have that pump spell, Blood Researcher gets a +1/+1 counter because they gained life, so it's a 3/3, and they gained 2 life, so it gets +2/+2, so it turns into a 5/5 that can block Twin Scroll and just eat it. They could do that if we attack with First Year as well, and they still end up with a 3/3 and gain several life. I think that works pretty poorly for us either way, and if they don't have it, then the more we're attacking with the Twin Scroll Shaman, the better it gets, and it gets good really quickly. We'll see what they have. And it Danky Kings, that's for sure. The double block. There are more ways to buff a Blood Researcher than there are a Witherbloom Apprentice, so I think we kill Witherbloom Apprentice first, because like any instant speed thing that just randomly gains life and we don't kill... Actually, no, even if they buff this up, if they were going to buff this up to big enough to survive a Twin Scroll Shaman, they would have blocked with just that, so we got to put this first, actually. Yeah, that's the more important creature here, I'm pretty sure. If they cast any instant, they do gain a life from the Witherbloom Apprentice. They are blocking with a 3/3 and a 5/5. We get to kill the 3/3 that could get bigger throughout the game, so we're fine. Ooh. Yeah, that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but it did turn it into a 4/4. So we did get to kill a 4/4 with Twin Scroll Shaman. So that's solid. We just don't get to do the crazy, massive double striker fun time here. We still get all the power of Sparring Regimen on just normal-sized creatures. Ooh, Gnarled Professor. That's pretty gnarly. 5/4 trample and they grab a lesson here. 5/4 trample for 4 as well. Ooh, and they grab the lesson that gains them some life to make Blood Researcher even larger. We are just going to crackle with power and kill that 5/4, I'm pretty certain. That way we can still attack in this turn. We have a 3/3 untapped as a blocker because we get that Vigilance off of the Regimen. That seems like the best play we've got. But Blood Researcher is going to turn into a 3/3 menace now. We do need to start getting a little worried about that attempting to race us. Well, we're always worried about Blood Researchers. Oh my god, they gain life off Witherbloom Apprentice as well? No, that turns into a 4/4 because they gain life from Environmental Sciences and Witherbloom Apprentice. Yeah, it's very quickly going to become Pillar Drop Warden time to bring back a Crackle with power. Might actually take us too long. Oh my god, yeah, they've really got the life gain combos with the Researchers. We just take 5 here. Send in a 4/4 Eager First Year. Draw the 4 damage spell once it's a 5/5. We attack it with a 4/4 Eager First Year. Their only way to kill it is to block with both of those creatures. So, pretty sure that is just a slam attack here. Yep, we just hit for 4. Now I can either cast Pillar Drop Warden or Illustrious Historian and hold up Heated Debate. I don't think that Elemental Summoning is the play. Although Elemental Summoning, if they don't have a removal spell in hand, gives us enough creatures to block their Menace creature. I prefer like Illustrious Historian, Heated Debate if we're trying to block here. If we're not trying to block, I think we just go for the Pillar Drop Warden. But Pillar Drop Warden, I think that returns our removal spell too slowly to deal with this Blood Researcher. Yeah, because we play it this turn, likely take 5 and go to 6, then we sack it next turn, then take 5, go to like 1, and then we Crackle with power. Like multiple turns later, we have to just have a block go off on Blood Researcher, which we could either do with Heated Debate Historian or with Elemental Summoning here. Elemental Summoning works better if they have nothing. Historian works better if they try to use a combat trick on us rather than a removal spell. If they have a removal spell, either play leaves us pretty much dead. play the Historian, leave up the Heated Debate here. If they removal spell us, they definitely get in, but we get to Heated Debate a different creature at least. If they have nothing, then the Elemental Summoning would have been better, because now we do have to trade 2 of our creatures into the Blood Researcher. Ooh, or they just don't attack. If they have nothing and they don't attack, I'm pretty fine with this. Do I actually just Heated Debate then? Because now I'm going to have 3 creatures out next turn with the Elemental Summoning, so I'm safer on blocks. If I debate something here, what do I even want to debate is the question. I'm feeling like the Witherbloom Apprentice, because it just gives them life every time they cast something, and that can quickly make the Blood Researcher just too big to deal with. Heated Debate on attacks is pretty good too, though. Save the Heated Debate for attacks, although it is going to be rough if we're not doing anything else with our mana here. 1-for-1 trade with the Blood Researcher. They could try to do some sort of multi-block here, where Heated Debate can hopefully blow them out. Yeah, Heated Debate can make sure the first year survives this turn. It only gets +1/+0 from the Magecraft. Unfortunately, not +1/+1. If it got +1/+1, we could debate an unrelated creature and still win this combat. But here we have to blow up one of these. So I guess we just blow up the Professor of Zoomancy. They do gain a life for the Blood Researcher. Don't like that. But we still have the blockers out for it if they don't draw into the removal. Is that a Mage Duel? Yeah, Mage Duel's actually just lethal. Yep, Mage Duel's exceptionally lethal. At any point they draw at this game. So, like, Elemental Summoning would have been safer there, but we're still definitely losing that game. From a Mage Duel. So I don't feel too bad about the lines taken there. Opponent just had the more consistent life gain Witherbloom deck to kind of crush us at the end there. That menacing Ajani's Pridemate card being really devastating in the right deck. And we just drew the damage-based removal for it too late. It just got way too large, way too fast for our red-based removal. The biggest thing we could have done differently would have been to Crackle with Power the Pridemate creature. And that may have actually changed the course of the game, because obviously we immediately drew into the damage-based removal for the 5/4. We drew into the 4 damage removal for the 5/4, which was just an embarrassing draw. But without knowing what we drew into, I think I was still cool with just getting rid of the trample creature so we could still keep sending in, try to keep the pressure on with our lifelinkers. Or not our lifelinkers, our +1/+1 counter vigilant creatures. But that was just some rough threat assessment that I think is definitely something that, after you've played against the cards a few more times, is going to fix itself over time. Because right now, I just see a 5/4 trample. I'm like, that's terrifying. That's probably better than the 2/2 menace. But that menacer just gets so big so often that it would have been ideal to just shut that thing off anytime you can. Just kill that. Aether Helix to bounce something and bring something back from grave? Waterfall Aerialist or Professor of Zoomancy. Zoomancy's like the best blocker kind of creature here, so I think we get rid of that. Make that cost 6 mana. So it looks like a pretty slow start for our opponent, so I do like our chances with this 2/1 and 3/1 evasive creature out here. Of course, the Aerialist can block the Spellbinder here, trade there, but then they don't get to play another creature till they have 6 mana total. They could bounce a creature and bring Aerialist back to hand next turn, so they bounce like Historian here, but now we get to cast... We only get to cast one creature this turn. I guess we cast like Pilgrim of the Ages. Yeah, probably better than casting Grinning Ignis. Pretty sure the Flyers trade here. They just go for the bounce spell. But they have to use the bounce spell on just like a 2-1, which is pretty weak in the grand scheme of things, and they get a 3-1 back, so they're not even recasting something great. Just use all of our mana here. Most expensive stuff. Stone-Rise Spirit can start giving things flying, although only one time. We've only got one card in grave right now. Waterfall Aerialist is the play, so we don't have to give anything flying here, and Heated Debate is the draw. Don't really want to Heated Debate that, especially when they have a Snakeskin Veil in hand. That can give +1/+1 and Hexproof till end of turn. They keep the +1/+1 forever, actually. So we'll attack everything. All they do is trade here. They're down to 10. Now we play another creature, hold on to this Heated Debate. Heated Debate can't be countered. However, if something gets Hexproof, that means it can't be targeted. So Hexproof doesn't actually counter something. It just makes it something that you aren't even allowed to target. So I think that Heated Debate does not get through Hexproof specifically. Because Hexproof is not countering the spell, it's making it an invalid target. Right? Which just makes it go... Does Heated Debate get through Hexproof? It does not, right? I'm not finding an answer on this. Alright. I could figure it out here, but it's a really risky play if I don't know for sure, so I'm just gonna go to my turn here. Stonebound Mentor, so we can scry when we give things flying. Actually pretty great. I like playing the Mentor then, giving a creature flying to chip in for 3 instead. Scrying 1. Scry that to the bottom. Gonna set a stop on our upkeep so we can give something flying during our upkeep so we can scry before the draw step if we want to. Because I'm fairly certain I'm gonna want to give the 3/3 flying next turn. Witherbloom Pledge Mage, so they gain a life whenever they cast an instant or sorcery now, which is pretty big. I could trade Stonebound Mentor for that, but I'd rather just take the damage right now. We're racing very well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we have 3 mana up after scrying here. So I would like to do this in the upkeep. Scry 1. Sudden Breakthrough. +2 damage. Hit for 4, 5, 6. Still not quite lethal. If we attack with everybody and they don't block somewhere we get through, but they're just going to block everywhere. They're going to throw a Pest there, throw a 5/5 there, so we just don't get in for lethal. We just attack with the Flyers. Can still push in for the potential lethal quite well. I think I'm going to keep it, and we can like use it next turn really well. Go to our main phase. Okay. Could actually use Sudden Breakthrough and Heated Debate all in one turn. Does that make attacking all any better? Like, all we have to think about is does attacking with these doing anything. Even with Sudden Breakthrough and Heated Debate, it doesn't change anything because of the Snakeskin Veil. So, like, we have to let them block first, and then we try to, like, Sudden Breakthrough something, I guess. But we can't, like, get enough to kill the 5/5 or anything, so... Yeah, just hit for 4 in the sky. Still going for that lethal next turn. Sudden Breakthrough does put another card in our grave, so we can give something flying again next turn. So that is pretty big. They attack with both of those, and we take 9. I think we definitely take it all here, because now we could just go wide on the ground, too, for lethal. Unless they just gain a boatload of life here. Well, Professor of Zoomancy will hold down the ground well. 2 more ground blockers here. Do they have the removal for Stonerise Spirit? They haven't tried it yet. Do I want to scry here? I can Sudden Breakthrough. And then give something flying after Sudden Breakthroughs in my grave. I guess we're just going to Sudden Breakthrough on Stonerise Spirit, so if it, like, resolves, it resolves. And then they'll just scoop. Negates. Okay. So it does go to the grave, though, but so we can still give flying during the upkeep. To scry here before we draw. And actually, we know what's in their hand. It's just Snakeskin Veil, so Stonebound Mentor with flying is lethal. Okay. And we got to scry away from a land, too, so that was pretty nice little combos there in the upkeep. Slam in for Xaxes. Oh, it's not Xaxes. They actually gain 1 life there. Oh my god, does that make it lethal? No, we take 6. Oh god. Oh god, we take 6. Oh my god, I forgot about Witherbloom Pledge Mage gaining 1 life. Oh, if they drew a pump spell here, this is terrifying. I think we still made the best play we could have. Oh my god, that's disgusting. Oh, that's absolutely disgusting. Oh. Yeah, we still played that out as well as we possibly could, I think. Maybe I could have chump blocked a little earlier rather than letting it all through. But, like, the chump blocks there stopped just as much damage as they would have earlier. Maybe even more, because we got to chump block 5 powers instead of 4 powers earlier. That was a devastating end to this sealed here. But yeah, no, actually, the way that we played that out last turn was so good, because had we just went for the Stonerise Spirit attack, had we just tried to cast our +2/+0 after we attacked with Stonerise Spirit, we wouldn't have, like, got in for anything. We would have hit him for just 1 damage there. But because we went for the +2/+0 during our upkeep, or at least before we went into combat, it allowed us to still give the Stonebound Mentor flying to be able to attack in for enough damage to just kill them the next turn. We just needed them to not draw removal spell, and unfortunately they drew into the draw spell to draw into the pump spell. Or removal or pump spell, I should say. So they did draw into the answer at the end. But yeah, I think that was the best play we could have made, being able to give Stonebound Mentor flying by casting our combat trick pre-combat, so even if they, like, counter it, we still get in with flyers there. Of course, if we had just 1 more mana, Heated Debate would have saved us there. Now that they had to use the Snakeskin's Veil to gain 1 life, but definitely really well played. In my opinion, on both ends, that game, with how we tried to push in for our last bit of damage there, and with how our opponent gained that 1 final bit of life to go to 1 there, and give themselves the opportunity to draw out of that game. So a really interesting game, really nice way to end it. Even if we do lose that one, we are still 4-3 above average. Nice sealed run all around. That will end today's sealed event, putting us at 1,400 gems and 3 packs as the reward. We'll see what we get out of here. Nice shock from the Mystical Archives, and an Elemental Expressionist with just a million words here. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, choose a creature you control. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. And when you exile it, create a 4/4. Okay, so whenever something leaves the battlefield, you get a 4/4 instead, anytime you Magecraft. It's pretty solid. I do really like those very restrictive hybrid costed rares because they do really incentivize you to stick to just one college, because that's like the only way you can cast them. And oh my god, a Harness Infinity is our final rare here. Don't really think this is going to be that playable and limited. It is a ton of mana and a really restrictive mana cost, triple black, triple green, and 1. However, it is a massive effect and a really fun one, especially for formats like Commander where you do crazy stuff. Would have been really cool if this card made it so you don't have a maximum hand size, because you are just getting a massive, massive hand when you cast this. So it's possible that you cast this and then immediately just discard down to 7 in the late game in Commander. However, in Commander, you also have like Reliquary Tower and Mind Tome, all of that stuff. Or Thought Vessel. I don't know where Mind Tome came from. Thought Vessel is the artifact that makes it so you have no maximum hand size, and Reliquary Tower of the Land. You definitely have stuff you can do with this in Commander, and it's a super fun card for that. It's also really nice when you have like the Mythic with really cool artwork and a really just aesthetically pleasing looking mana cost. I just do like those kind of big splashy effects in Commander, and it looks really cool here. So as you can see, Arena still being all weird. Don't know where my daily challenges are or my friends list is. So if anybody on my friends list has been trying to reach me at all lately, it's not possible. Arena's being weird. But yeah, that is going to end today's sealed event. Definitely had a lot of fun. I think that this format is pretty great in limited all around, draft and sealed. They play kind of differently, but both play very well. In sealed, I do see a lot more kind of splashier, kind of 3-color sort of strategies. The more colors you are, the more access to more lessons you have. If you have a lot of good learn cards in your deck, our sealed pool didn't lend itself well to that, but I do think that is one of the best things you can do in sealed is if you've got a good pile of lessons and a good pile of learn cards, just go some 3-color lesson pile and just have a bunch of card advantage, a bunch of value there. So that is a pretty fun thing to do. It's certainly a lot slower in draft. When in draft, you can like really go for the aggressive decks if you want to try to beat those sorts of multicolored piles. Anyways, as always, thank you all very much for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can as always do that by liking, commenting, subscribing, all these good things that let the YouTube algorithm know that you're enjoying the content and want to see more. And as always, once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.